We've had a few Star Wars actors in the past come out and kind of insinuate that there is some sort of agenda going on at Lucasfilm. We've had people like John Boyega come out and hint that he was only cast in Star Wars because he's black, and a few other minor examples, but the example that we have today is a lot more direct than all the other ones, and even though they didn't straight up come out and say that Lucasfilm has an agenda, they pretty much said it without saying it. Of course, none of these actors, none of these employees want to lose their job, so they're not straight up gonna say that there's an agenda, but the actor that I'm talking about today is Katee Sackhoff, who plays Bo-Katan in The Mandalorian, and she exposed not only the agenda that Star Wars has, that Lucasfilm has, but also the agenda that all of Hollywood has right now. And when the actors inside of Hollywood, especially when the female actors inside of Hollywood start to realize this is happening, that's when you know that this is getting out of hand, because the people inside of Hollywood are in such a bubble, and that's why they think all this stuff is acceptable. That's why they think pushing agendas is a good thing, because in their bubble in LA and Hollywood, that is a good thing. And they think the more woke you are, the more you're going to sell products, because that's how people in LA, that's how people in Hollywood think. But that's not how the rest of the people in the United States think. And she's also revealing that actors inside of Hollywood are starting to realize what's going on, and they're starting to change their way of thinking. So this article from Bounding Into Comics says Katee Sackhoff attempts to explain why the all-female scene in The Mandalorian works. Now this article kind of takes the side that the Mandalorian all-female scene was a really bad thing, and I just straight up disagree. There are some flaws with the scene, and I'll go into that later in the video, but I think compared to pretty much any all-female scene that we've seen in Hollywood recently, it was done very well. In a lengthy interview with Looper where she discusses her YouTube channel as well as Battlestar Galactica, Sackhoff is asked, when you were cast on Battlestar, there was a pretty vocal group of fans that was pretty pissed about Starbuck being a woman. That seemed to change once the show came out, but looking at the season finale of The Mandalorian, and it's you and Mercedes and Gina and Ming-Na Wen driving almost all of the action, and people almost didn't notice. I myself didn't notice until the second time I watched the episode. As a sci-fi action star, have you seen the attitude towards women in that space change? I don't think the attitude towards women has changed at all in that space. I think the way that women are portrayed in Hollywood now has made people extremely angry, because a lot of the time they're pushing some sort of pro-woman agenda, some kind of feminist agenda, instead of just making a good character that happens to be female. I think that's the real problem. It's not the perception of women that people have, it's the way they're portrayed in these stories. First off, this question is laughable. Din Djarin actually has two huge fight sequences in the final episode, the first against the Dark Trooper and the second against Moff Gideon. By the way, that Moff Gideon fight was so lackluster to me. Not to mention the final combat sequence is Luke Skywalker going ham on Dark Troopers, but the all-female fire squad was driving almost all the action. That is kind of true, they didn't really drive almost all the action. There was actually pretty much non-stop action in that episode, and the all-women action sequence was kind of a small percentage of that. Nevertheless, Sackhoff responded, absolutely, yeah. Well, first and foremost, one of the reasons why Starbuck worked was that we never mentioned the fact that she was a woman. She was just a well-rounded, interesting, creative character in a world that was fun to watch. She just happened to be a woman. Now, I know this article is kind of taking a stance against Katee Sackhoff and against the all-female scene in The Mandalorian, but I 100% agree with what Katie's saying here. I think the all-female scene in The Mandalorian worked for exactly the reason that she's about to say. And I'll be honest, if you're one of those people who absolutely hate the sequel trilogy, and then you watch The Mandalorian and you absolutely hate The Mandalorian, either one, you just don't like Star Wars, and it's just not for you, or two, you're just trying to be mad about something. You're watching these shows, you're watching these movies, just trying to look for things to be mad about, instead of trying to just watch the show or watch the movie. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of the sequel trilogy. I don't really like it all that much, and honestly, I don't think The Mandalorian is as immaculate as everyone makes it out to be, but I think The Mandalorian is pretty good. And I think The Mandalorian is so different from the sequel trilogy that if you absolutely hate both of those, like I said, you either don't like Star Wars or you just want to be angry about something. Sackhoff would then transition to The Mandalorian. The reason why that scene at the end of The Mandalorian worked was they didn't talk about the fact that they were women. They were just the best people for the job, and they were there, they did it, and they succeeded. We didn't stop to be like female power, woohoo. You take the lead because you're the prettiest, you know what I mean? This was just a crew that was available, which isn't 100% true. They did just conveniently not have Axe Woves around. They did send Boba Fett off for no reason. I still don't understand either one of those things. Apparently in the future we're gonna figure out why Axe Woves wasn't there. I strongly doubt that, but I think John and Dave just saw an opportunity to show everyone how to do an all-female scene. I think they just saw an opportunity to do something cool with these really good female characters that they had. So they made Boba Fett run away, they made Axe Woves disappear, and they made Din Djarin go alone through Moff Gideon's ship, which yeah, doesn't make much sense narratively, but neither does a lot of The Mandalorian. It's just how it is, and like I said, I didn't even realize it was an all-female scene until the second time I watched the episode. Whereas when I watched Infinity War or when I watched Endgame, you can immediately pick out the women power moments. They're not subtle, they're extremely cringy, and they brought attention to it. That's exactly what Katee Sackhoff said. The reason why the Mandalorian moment works way better than both of those moments is because the Infinity War and the Endgame moments both brought attention to the fact that they were women, and the Mandalorian moment didn't. The article goes on to talk about exactly what I just talked about, and while their ruse to get on the ship works, Gideon quickly sniffs it out. One would think that having the most fearsome bounty hunter as a part of your strike team might be something you would want, especially when your infiltration mission has been discovered almost from the get-go. However, Fett leaves the area and is never seen again, most likely because if he was actually on the mission, he would encounter Luke Skywalker at the end and there would be all kinds of problems with that. That's also true. So Sackhoff is wrong, they weren't the best people for the job. Their best asset, Boba Fett, is used as a decoy and doesn't even deploy with the team. And as for their mission, it more than likely would have failed without the intervention of Luke Skywalker, as the Dark Troopers and Moff Gideon outplayed them and had them cornered. So yeah, that's real nitpicking. nitpicky stuff. But the main premise of what Katie Sackhoff said is 100% true. The reason that scene worked is because there was no attention brought to the fact that they were women. It was just a good scene with good characters, and it was extremely believable. And I think that's what's changed, not only the genre, but in our industry, is that we don't feel like we have to quantify a female's existence anymore by saying, well, she's a woman, she's a strong female character. We don't have to do that anymore. Yeah, you don't have to do that anymore, but they still do it. And every time they do it, people complain about it. It doesn't work. But when they do it the way that The Mandalorian did it, no one cares. Most of the people that I talk to about the show don't even realize that that's an all-female scene until I point it out to them, because it's believable. It just works. Now it's just like, isn't that awesome to watch? Holy crap, that was amazing. That's not to take away and negate from the fact that they're obviously women. Katie. They could very well be non-binary transgender Mandalorians. We can't be assuming their gender like that. Get with the times. I think that's what's changed the most in the industry. We have so many amazing women to watch. That's very true. We do have a lot of talented women in Hollywood, but every time they're put into a movie and the Endgame moment happens or the Infinity War moment happens, as soon as one of those moments happen, it's all gone. And it doesn't just take away from the individual character, it takes away from the entire movie. Endgame will always have that stain on it. Infinity War will always have that stain on it. The sequel trilogy will definitely always have that stain on it. And The Mandalorian won't. No one cares about the Mandalorian moment because, once again, it's believable. But let me know what you think in the comments about what Katie Sackhoff said about the Mandalorian all-female scene and about what she said about females in Hollywood in general. I personally feel like the all-female scene in The Mandalorian works extremely well. And once again, I feel like if you absolutely hate The Mandalorian and you absolutely hate the sequel trilogy, you absolutely hate the Clone Wars, you probably just don't like Star Wars. Or once again, you're just watching these shows, you're watching these movies with the intention of finding something to be mad at. And that's not a fun way to consume content. That's just not a fun way to live life. Just loosen up a little bit. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you want to support the channel, check out all of the new merch that I just dropped in the merch store. The link to that will be in the description. If you did enjoy the video, please leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. If you want to follow me on Twitter or join the Discord, both of those links will be in the description as well. But thank you for watching the video, and I hope to see you in the next one.